Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator Van Hollen, Chairman Rosenworcel, Mayor Scott, and our guests. I am Darcel Graham, Interim CEO of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, and thank you so much for coming out to our library today. Here at the Pratt Library, we know how important it is to keep our community connected. The Enoch Pratt Free Library is one of the largest providers of free internet service in this state of Maryland, and federal funding has helped us battle the digital divide here in Baltimore. That became even more evident during the pandemic, and that's when Pratt went into action. We installed Wi-Fi outside of all of our branches, and through the Emergency Connectivity Fund, we were able to purchase hotspots to loan out to families just like you check out a book. But last month, when the Emergency Connectivity Fund expired, we were faced with an impossible situation. We had to either turn off the data to those hotspots for over 2,000 families or find the hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep the program running. As a library, we knew we could not leave our families disconnected, so we found the funding to keep them on, knowing that the program may not be financially sustainable for us in the future. This is why the expansion of the E-rate program is so vitally important to us here at the library. Because of this decision, children will be able to access educational resources, their parents will be able to use the web to apply for jobs, families will be able to connect to loved ones, all because they were lent a hotspot and can access internet in their homes. And this is just the start. The hotspots are not only the way the Pratt is bridging the digital divide. In partnership with the Baltimore Office of Information Technology, the Pratt has helped to distribute more than 30,000 free Chromebooks to our most vulnerable neighbors through the Maryland Connected Device Program. Every day, thousands of people come here to our libraries to access our free Wi-Fi, and now we're making sure that they have a safe, comfortable space to do so. Thanks to the funding through the American Rescue Plan awarded by the Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs, we are updating the interior spaces of 7 libraries, and we started right here in our Walbrook communities. We've transformed this branch into a high-end co-working space where customers can access computers privately or hold one-on-one small groups meeting. This branch also includes a privacy part where customers can meet with social workers, a lawyer, or even a housing navigator. The Pratt will also use American Rescue funding to expand beyond the walls of our library with the new Pratt Anywhere program. Through Pratt Anywhere, the library will open a new computer lab inside of OpenWorks in East Baltimore. And we are installing a new grab-and-go book vending machine at the Penn train station. The Pratt is also partnering with our friends at the Recreation and Parks to create a pop-up library inside the Rita Church Community Center. Libraries are community connectors in so many ways. None of these projects would be possible if it weren't for the support of federal, state, and our city partners. It is my pleasure to introduce one of those partners who is a regular supporter of the Pratt Library, Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Darcel. Thank you, Ms. Graham, for your leadership here at Enoch Pratt Library, and to all of you who helped make this happen. I'm grateful for that introduction. I'm most grateful for all the work you and your team are doing here. It's great to be here with my friend, the Mayor of Baltimore, and I want to thank Mayor Scott for all of his leadership over the years through the pandemic and now. It's also great to be here with Cody Dorsey, who's the Executive Director of Digital Equity Coalition here in Baltimore, and as you will hear, also a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, I believe with the FCC. Thank you and your team for all that you've done. Neil Naff, thank you for being a member of the board of the Enoch Pratt Library System. And I'm really thrilled that we're here with a very special guest who you're going to hear from, the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, the chair of the FCC, Jessica Rosenworcel. Thank you very much for all your leadership. Let's give her a hand for visiting us here in Baltimore. Uh, I do think this is a really important story to tell, and it's a story that continues in the proud tradition that Enoch Pratt laid out, the vision that he had when in 1882, what was then a revolutionary idea of finding a public library, and I quote, for all, rich and poor, without distinction of race or color, end quote. That was the mission, that was the vision, and what we're doing here today is making sure that we continue to update and make real that vision for all the residents of Baltimore City. Because obviously changes take place in how we learn, how we get information here in the 21st century. And that is why we need to make sure, as Darcel indicated, that people can be connected, not just to the books on the shelves, but also to the information superhighway, the internet. And I want to thank the mayor for using some of the funds that Baltimore City received through the American Rescue Plan. This was a very important effort launched by President Biden and Vice President Harris early in the Biden administration to address the pandemic. And the mayor invested $11 million from the American Rescue Plan in helping to renovate and expand this important library system, and used just over $4 million of those funds to help make sure that people who came here and to the other chapters in the Enoch Pratt library system could be able to access the internet. And I think all of us know that in this age, in the 21st century, having access to the internet is as important as it was to have access to electricity in the 20th century. Our workers need it to develop their skills. People need it to connect with healthcare providers. Entrepreneurs need it to help start up and sustain their small businesses. And our students need the internet to learn. Nobody knows that better than our special guest today, Jessica Rosenworcel, who I've had the pleasure of working with on these issues for quite some time now. You know, the FCC, this predates both of us in terms of our work, but the FCC launched the E-rate program in 1996. And the idea was to make sure that visitors to libraries, users of libraries, could connect with the internet. You go back to the 1990s, that was really the age when the information superhighway got launched, and the FCC recognized that they needed to make sure that libraries could connect. And Maryland schools and libraries have received nearly $670 million from the E-rate program over that period of time. But despite the headway, despite the progress from the E-rate program at libraries and schools, there was a gap. And it first was brought to my attention in the form of what was called the homework gap. And this is what we worked on way back, which is, you know, not every student can come to the library when they need to, during the hours they need to do their homework. And all of us know that if you're a student and you were not connected from your home to the internet, you'd be at a big disadvantage when doing your homework compared to the kids that had easy access. And this gap was obviously a gap that was more pronounced for lower income families and in communities of color. And so that's why back before the pandemic, I introduced a bill to close the homework gap. And that's when Chair Rosenworcel, now Chair Rosenworcel, and I began working on this issue to close the homework gap. And then the pandemic hit. And what was a homework gap became a full-blown learning gap, right? It wasn't just needing access to the internet for your homework. Kids were going to class virtually. And all of America recognized at that time that we needed to get online. Every household, every small business needed to get online. And so the Congress passed legislation, and I worked very closely with Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, who's been a champion on these issues, to pass what was called the Emergency Educational Connectivity Fund. It was a $7 billion fund launched during the pandemic, and it was designed to make sure that libraries and schools could give students those connectors, even when they were not at school or in the library, for hotspots and other access from their homes, sometimes when they're riding home on the bus, especially in rural areas. Maryland schools and libraries received about $145 million under that emergency legislation. But, and here's why we're gathered here today, that emergency education connectivity fund was launched during the pandemic. It was launched during the emergency. And its authority has expired as its term came to an end. But what did not expire was the need for students to continue to be able to get those hotspots, to be able to do their homework, not only in libraries, but when they're not able to make it here because of the hours or their schedules, to be able to do it at home. And when that expired, the ability of the FCC to provide libraries like the Enoch Pratt library system with those hotspots also expired. And so the question was what to do. And the reason we're here today is that Chair Rosenworcel came to the rescue. This is an area that she has been focused on since our work together on the homework gap. She's been working on this issue for a very, very long time. And she was able to get the FCC to adopt rules and guidelines to continue the ability of this program to support libraries like the library right here, the Enoch Pratt library system. This is a major rescue effort, and as you heard from Ms. Graham, it's going to save this library system lots of money which they might have run out of and not been able to sustain, so that we can continue to make sure that students or other users, other students and their family members can be able to connect in this way. So I want to thank Chairwoman Rosenworcel. I happen to chair the Appropriations Subcommittee that funds the FCC. And so I'm always grateful for their putting federal taxpayer dollars, resources to good use to make sure that all of our people can connect to the information they need. That was the vision of the founder of this library system, and Chair Rosenworcel is making sure that we implement it through the work she does. So it's with great pleasure that I'm going to introduce to all of you the chair of the FCC, Jessica Rosenworcel.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Senator Van Hollen, who I've worked with for some time. Thank you for being here, Mayor Scott, and thank you to Ms. Graham and the Enoch Pratt Library. Libraries are amazing. They're palaces for the people, and this is an especially beautiful one. It's terrific to be here and celebrate your renovation. So remember the pandemic? It's hard to forget. So down the road in Washington, D.C., where I live, in my house, we've got two parents with two jobs and two kids and too little time in the day. And during the pandemic, it was not easy to keep that Wi-Fi router up and running, because we got told, like everyone else, go home, hunker down, and live life online. So I've got kids who are going to school, a husband who's trying to keep his job, me who's trying to run my office. And it was a lot, and yet we were really lucky because we had that connectivity. So many people in the United States did not. The pandemic made that clear. I'm sure you saw people sitting outside on the street here in parked cars, just trying to use their free Wi-Fi signal at the library to stay in touch with family and friends. I'm sure there were other people in parking lots in Baltimore trying to pick up a signal just to be able to manage that healthcare appointment because, you know, telemedicine was hard if you didn't have the bandwidth at home. And then there were the kids who would sit outside of fast food restaurants with laptops perched on their knees, just trying to keep up with online class and their homework. I used to say that they were kids who fell into the homework gap because they didn't have broadband at home, though they had it in school and they couldn't do their nightly schoolwork. But this was no longer just a gap, it was a chasm. And looking at all of this, Senator Van Hollen decided that we should use some of those emergency funds during that COVID era to help those kids connect. And he set up the Emergency Connectivity Fund. It was a really big deal. For the first time ever, the FCC had $7 billion to help libraries and schools give out hotspots and laptops and keep those kids connected. It was a terrific idea. But now, as the pandemic fades, what hasn't faded is that we still have this digital divide. We still have kids who fall into the homework gap. We don't have the funds from the Emergency Connectivity Fund to address it anymore. So I went back to my agency and looked at what we could do. And there is a program called E-Rate. It was started in 1996, and I don't know about you, but in 1996, I called the internet the information superhighway. And I had an AOL account and thought it was cool. It was a long time ago, but in 1996, Congress saw very clearly that connecting schools and libraries to the internet would be a good thing for our communities. And over time, the FCC helped support libraries across the country and schools across the country with broadband to the classrooms, to the carols over there. In fact, this is one of the libraries that gets support from us. And this program's been a quiet powerhouse. But you see, great programs don't survive without continuous attention and care. So I looked at the end of the Emergency Connectivity Fund and that crisis we saw during the pandemic and said it was time to update E-Rate. And with the support of some folks in Congress and my colleagues at the FCC, just this last week, we decided that going forward, the E-Rate program will support Wi-Fi hotspots for loan in libraries and school libraries across the country. Because it's 2024, and in the United States of America, we can get everyone in this country connected. We can get every child connected so they can thrive in school. So I'm proud of what we were able to do, and I can't wait to see what you're going to be able to do when you have that connectivity to loan and how helpful it will be for folks in Baltimore, across Maryland, and across the country. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And now I'm going to bring up the mayor and thank him for a lot of the great work he does here in Baltimore City, but today especially what he does for this library system. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Senator, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me first start by welcoming you, Madam Chair, to Baltimore. We'll make sure you get some creds before you leave. They're just not as good as in D.C. We understand. We'll get you the best of the best. Always incredibly proud to stand with my senator, who is a champion for Baltimore City each and every day, and also obviously our wonderful CEO, CEO Graham, for the great work that her and the team at the Pratt Library do, working on changing and helping lives every day across the city of Baltimore. You all know why we're here, because why we're here today talked about making significant strides on what truly I believe is one of the greatest civil rights issues of our time, closing the digital divide, and not just electricity, not having internet now, Senator, I would say it's like not having water running into your home. You have to have it. We know that Baltimore has lagged behind other jurisdictions when it comes to internet connectivity and access to the technology and devices that we need. We also know that the world is not just becoming increasingly digital. That changeover has already completely taken hold. The digital divide holds Baltimoreans back, whether it's students not having access to reliable internet at home, or job seekers not having to have that access, and when they can't get to the Pratt Library to do their job application, or our older adults who find it harder and harder to keep up on those medical appointments because they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the devices, and what's an important portion, the skill set needed to remain plugged into a digital world. It makes an impact on so many families, and it risks our city being left behind. But we've done a monumental amount of work during my administration to help tackle that problem, and slowly but surely we are seeing the results. And so much of that work is a direct result of the support from Senator Van Hollen and the Biden-Harris administration, because so many of these initiatives, as you heard, are funded by ARPA. There isn't a single silver bullet that is going to close the digital divide. It's going to take every piece: internet access, education and training, and access to devices. There needs to be a mosaic of strategies and programs to help close the gap inch by inch with both short and long-term goals. And that's why this ruling by the FCC and today's announcement is so credibly important, because it serves as an important piece of the puzzle, a source of funding that allows a step to help provide a little bit more access to a few more people. And before you know it, bit by bit, we'll have solved the problem and we'll keep moving forward. And doing this takes partners, which the Enoch Pratt Library is an incredible one. We know the work that they do. The Pratt Library is probably the most beloved thing in Baltimore City when it comes to outward-facing services. They are the cornerstone of so many of our community outreach strategies, and our digital equity work is no different. They are essential. You heard about the 30,000 Chromebooks given to Baltimore students and families, and they will be an essential part of the work that we're here discussing today. I'd like to also shout out both our Baltimore City Information and Technology Office and the Recover Office, especially our Chief Recovery Office, for their work to help lead the Digital Equity Fund. Last year, we released Baltimore's digital inclusion strategy to lay out a roadmap for this work and provide a comprehensive, forward-thinking approach to develop our digital infrastructure and help residents and businesses harness the power of that technology for their benefit and the betterment of Baltimore. In it, we have 4 goals to help anchor the city's activities and investments in the digital ecosystem. Reliable high-speed internet, starting with the most underserved communities. Baltimore City residents will have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed public Wi-Fi internet based on investments and future-proof fiber optic networks. Technology and devices. We will be able to get a modern computing device to our residents, and of course, the skills and training. We will make sure that our residents have access to digital skills training, helping them use computing devices and safely navigate the internet. And technical support, we will receive technical support in multiple language to master internet services and devices for all of our residents. And the Digital Equity Fund is there to help and achieve those goals and provide support for our neighborhoods and communities who are creating community-led digital inclusion plans to provide funding to bring them to life. This work could not be more important. Setting our young people and communities up to succeed in the digital world and the digital economy is critically important to ensure that Baltimore as a whole is able to overcome the legacy of historic intentional disinvestment that far too many experience in our city. And together, we'll close the digital divide and be on the forefront of this 21st century civil rights fight. Thank you very much.
Right.
We do have some time for
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions anybody has.
Just given this is an official event in the senator's and the chairwoman's official capacity, questions related to the event they can take at the podium. Anything else that's unrelated we can do following that.
I'll take all mine.
Well, I'll focus on the event. Talk about how soon
She, yeah, they're recording it.
when will the libraries get these hotspots?
I'm going to turn it over to the chair.
E-rate is a program that schools and libraries apply for annually. So when we open up the application window next fall, which will then close in March of the following year, schools across the country will be able to apply for them, and libraries as well.
How many families can this help? Each library, how many, devices will each library get to check out to these families?
So it's going to depend on the demand, but we have an annual budget for E-rate that's roughly $4.9 billion. We anticipate more than $1 billion will be available specifically for hotspots. So it's going to make a meaningful difference in a lot of places across the country.
And so I just wanted to put that into perspective. I know you said this fall is when people will be able to apply. Mayor Brandon Scott, I looked at some data that came out from last year. Just how many numbers, what are the numbers, how many families don't have access to reliable, it said 120,000. I don't know if that's still accurate.
Well, we think that we've made a dent in that. It's probably less than that now, but we're still talking about a significant portion of the city. And that's
Okay.
why we talked about this in this way and how this is a piece of that, right? We have to create the ability for some of these neighborhoods to even have high speed, reliable internet because the infrastructure has to be put there. That's why we laid out that plan as a roadmap to how we're building that, something that quite frankly should have been done back in 1996 when I had a CompuServe account, which is like a subsidiary AOL and was on Messenger. We did not do the work then. Now we have to do the work to make sure that we do not leave our residents behind for the future.
Perfect. And then one question for you, Chair. I know during the pandemic, a lot of students did have the hot spots. Did they have to give those back? I mean, what happened with that?
The Emergency Connectivity Fund was able to reach about 18 million students nationwide. It was a really big deal. The schools and libraries, some of them still have some of those hotspots, some of the computers, but not everybody everywhere. There was a study that the American Library Association did last year, and it found about half of the libraries nationwide currently loan out Wi-Fi hotspots. So it suggests there are a lot of places out there that don't have these resources and don't have these devices. And we're hoping that this change to the E-rate program will allow us to reach them.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add on, the Enoch Pratt Free Library is so pleased that we have currently 2,000 hotspots in our collection and actively adding more as we speak now. So thank you.
Any other questions? I want to thank everybody. I do want to add, as the mayor said, this is a, sure.
Excuse me. Yes, sir. A lot of people today think that the only thing they can do at the library is borrow a book, and that's it. They don't know anything else that's going on. And this program will work well for school-age kids because there's a library in every school. But what about the people that have gone through or have dropped out? How do they take the information home? It's like somebody like me that I can pass that information on to my grandkids and my great-grandkids.
Sure, and I'm gonna actually turn it over to the CEO of the library. I do just want to make one point, which is, as the mayor said, this program is a very important piece of the overall puzzle. The American Rescue Plan and other federal legislation also provided substantial resources to work to connect every household in America, ultimately every household in the city, with high-speed internet. That will take a while. The mayor is working on that, but I want to point out that those resources are in addition to the resources we're talking about today. But now let me turn it over to the CEO.
Thank you for your question. And this library is for you. Everything inside is for you and families. And all you need to do is visit one of our 22 locations, and you can get access to all the materials, including hotspots and Chromebooks for you to keep. And so that is definitely not just for you as an individual, but for your kids, your grandkids, and the whole entire family. Yes, you can.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the library, Enoch Pratt Free Library System. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all that you're doing, and to the chair of the FCC, Jessica Rosenworcel. Thank you, really. Thank you for being here. Most of all, thank you for the great work that you and your team are doing. Thanks. Thank you all for being here.